Hi y'all, I'm so excited to announce the beginning of my new weekly Instagram show called Girl, Don't Do This. So ever since I did my fitness jeans journey last year, a lot of you guys have asked me about how do I think about food now? How do I know when something is something I should eat or shouldn't eat? And so that's what this show is for. So how it works is every week I will pick a food that I see being marketed as like healthy or a new thing that comes out on the market, and I'll talk about it and let you know whether or not it's a YAAASS queen or it's a girl don't do it. So the other thing to keep in mind is that I am your big sister auntie queen. I am not a nutritionist or a doctor. So everything I'm telling you is based off of how I understand that my body works. So it should go without saying, if you want to make any modifications to your diet, introduce something, take something out, talk to a doctor. I obviously still talk to Dr. Dan. What up, Dr. Dan? And I'll definitely ask him along the way, but definitely use this show as a place to say, okay, like I want to try that, or, oh, I'm so glad she talked about it, I'm going to avoid it. But use the doctor as kind of like the end all be all. I'm just like your best friend. Again, I'm talking about everything from the perspective of what I know about my body. I did fitness jeans last May, and so fitness jeans gave me a lot of information that I use to evaluate how I eat food now. So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming at it from. But as we all learned in that video, everybody operates and functions differently. So things that might not be good for me could work for you. But you can always use this as just kind of like a general starting off point. Okay, so now that I've gotten over that, let's get into the good stuff. Let's start reviewing. So for this week, I was at the gym and I saw that they have this thing now and it's called protein popcorn. I'll take a picture of it. So it caught my eye because I love popcorn. You can have so much of it and it's typically not that many calories for a serving. And it's protein popcorn, so I don't eat meat anymore, so that caught my eye. Let me not say that. So I don't eat traditional meats, and if I do eat meat, I'll eat fish. And it's not so much that I'm like vegan or vegetarian, I just, meat has a lot of saturated fat in it, and I have a oh my God. Words, y'all. I just trip up over my words all the time. But anyway, so I have a saturated fat sensitivity that I'll talk about a little bit later. So I don't eat a lot of meat because meat tends to be high in saturated fat. But I'll still eat it on occasion. Honestly, knowing that I have this saturated fat sensitivity, just makes me a lot more picky about the kind of meat that I do eat. But when I do, I would say I like to eat fish. So anyway, now back to the popcorn. Why did I even get on that saturated fat sensitivity tangent? Oh, because I don't really eat meat anymore. And so the fact that it was protein popcorn meant that it was another additional protein source that I could add to my diet. So when we look at the cover, it says that it's 10 grams of protein. Which 10 grams for the whole bag isn't bad. And then even if it was like 10 grams for like a serving and there's like 2 servings in here, that's not bad. But I will say that if there are 2 servings worth in here, the thing that you have to be careful about is that you're not just getting 2 servings of protein, you're also getting 2 servings of fat and carbs. So remember that. And fat and carbs aren't bad things. Like I know that our society has taught us to have a bad relationship with those 2 things. And that's something that I feel like I've been able to rehabilitate for myself. It's just about making sure you're getting the right ratio of stuff. So with that, let's actually segue into looking at the nutrition label because I think that that will allow us to understand what the ratio is on this. So when I'm trying to determine whether or not something is good for me, I will always look at the nutrition facts and I'll look at the ingredients. So when I look at the nutrition facts, I'm always paying attention to the serving size and what is the amount I will want to eat versus the amount that's listed that you should eat for the calories that are there. So I'm gonna say that again because I think that could be a lot. This is where you wanna have true clarity with yourself and you wanna really think about what would I actually eat and then compare that to what is the recommended serving. So I think a great example for that is, let's think about the ice cream pints. So a lot of ice cream pints now have been advertising how eating the whole pint is like 200, 300 calories. And that is because most people don't eat the serving, they eat the pint. So again, you just want to be real about how much do you think you're typically going to eat, and then compare that with what is the recommended amount per serving, because that is the calorie information that's there. So for the protein popcorn, the serving size and thus the calorie information and everything that's here is for the whole container, because the serving size is the whole bag. So that's nice. So if you don't remember the calorie number on the bag, to eat this whole bag would be 240 calories, which to me is kind of high for popcorn. I've had other popcorns before and had this amount for half of the calories. And then here's the other thing about calories, because I think we also have a terrible relationship with calories. Like, y'all know that I had a horrible relationship with calories, and Fitness Jeans has definitely helped me rehabilitate that as well. So when it comes to calories, it's not just about the calories, but it's a balance between the calories and then the macronutrients. And so I'll explain what macronutrients is next. So evaluating the calories when we're looking at the nutrition facts is like step 1. And then step 2 is looking at the ratio of fat, carbs, and proteins, which are the macronutrients, to see if everything kind of matches up. So again, bringing it back to the ice cream pints, which is probably something I'll review next. A lot of them will advertise that you can eat the whole pint for 300 calories, but the nutrition information that's on the back is actually for 1 serving. And so most pints have 4 servings in them, so you actually would multiply the information for fat, carbs, and proteins 4 times. So then you're not just getting 10 grams of carbs. If you ate the whole pint of that ice cream, you'd be getting 40 grams of carbs, which is very different from what you think you might be getting. So again, 40 grams of carbs isn't bad. It all depends on where the carbs are coming from. Y'all, I am so tangential. I cannot remember why I went down that rabbit hole. But I'm going to go back to talking about the nutrition label of the popcorn. So anyway, the popcorn, to have the whole bag, is 240 calories, which to me is kind of high comparing other popcorns. When we look at the macros, so the macros, right off the bat, I'm already like, girl, don't do this. So part of the reason I feel that way is, yes, 10 grams of protein for this is pretty nice. Like, this is definitely a higher amount of protein than you'll get in most popcorns. And I'll even give them the carb ratio too. So there's 21 grams of carbs, which isn't bad to have this whole bag. And 6 of those carbs are coming from fiber, which is great because fiber helps to curb appetite. But that fat content though, that fat content is wild. It is 14 grams of fat to have this whole bag, and 12 grams of that is coming from saturated fat alone. So here's the thing. Again, we all in this society have a terrible relationship with the word fat. Fat is not a bad thing. I'm gonna need y'all to say it with me. Fat is not a bad thing. The thing that we want to be careful about though is just making sure that we know where we're getting our fat from and that we're not over ingesting fat. But fat in and of itself isn't a bad thing. We literally would not survive without fat. Fat is what keeps us warm, it keeps us jiggly, it keeps us just thick and luscious. Fat is great. But again, you just want to be careful about not having too much of it. I know some of y'all are like, jiggly. I don't want to be jiggly, but there are certain parts, I like seeing my thighs jiggle a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I know society has fucked us up. And then I do belly dance, and so in belly dance, everything jiggles. I think that's why I'm slowly becoming okay with the jiggle, is because in belly dance, that, it's a dance. Your body is jiggling. That's essentially what belly dance is. And I'm hella excited because my dance studio is now offering weekly belly dance. Before it was just a once a month or once every couple of weeks kind of thing, but now it's gonna be every week. So I'm hella excited. So there'll definitely be some videos to check out of all my jiggle so that we can all get comfortable with our jiggle. All right, so now that I'm done with that tangent, anyway, so as I mentioned before, I have the ApoA2 gene, which is the saturated fat sensitivity gene. So it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't have things that have saturated fat, but it's that I should monitor how much saturated fat I'm having and try to keep my saturated fat intake pretty low. So that's one of the reasons why I stopped eating meat or drastically lowered how much meat I was eating, because meat and cheeses tend to be the things that are high in saturated fat. But again, I didn't completely give it up because I just don't think that that's a pragmatic way to go about it. Like I think that realistically people don't want to give up meat and they don't want to give up cheese, and I think that's fine. I just drastically lowered it. And when I say drastically lowered it, it's like it's on a very rare occasion, and that's the thing, I'm just very picky about it. So like if I am gonna have cheese, like it's gonna be the best damn cheese I've ever had. So anyway, back to the popcorn. 12 grams of saturated fat for popcorn is extremely high, and I think that that's probably why it's double the calories than normal popcorn. And I've seen popcorns that will have 10 grams of fat per serving, which is fine, but I just think for me personally, because I have that saturated fat sensitivity and so much of the fat is coming from saturated fat, this particular brand of popcorn would be a girl don't do it to me. And again, that's because I know that I have the saturated fat sensitivity. If you don't have it, then you're good to go. But I think even if you didn't do fitness genes and you didn't know that, I still just think 12 grams of saturated fat is just too damn high. But I will say that the saturated fat is largely coming from the coconut oil. So the last part of a food that I will look at to deem whether or not it's healthy for me is the ingredients list. And so how you read an ingredients list is that the first ingredients that are listed are usually the most prominent ingredients in the food. So this popcorn actually has like really decent ingredients. Like everything looks natural. It's all stuff that I've seen before. I can pronounce. I understand what it is. But yeah, it's just that coconut oil. The coconut oil is the second ingredient on the list. So there's just definitely a lot of it. And coconut oil is very, very high in saturated fat. But I'd say out of all the sources to get saturated fat, I mean, when you think about all of the sources that you could get saturated fat from, like coconut oil is like the best one that you could get it from. But yeah, so for me, this would ultimately be a girl don't do it. I think in theory, I really, really love the idea of protein popcorn, just because I love popcorn so much and it seems like it would be such a dope addition to it. I'm actually trying to figure out where is the protein source. So the protein source is whole grain brown rice protein, which sounds fine. I just wish they hadn't used so much coconut oil. Like I wish there was another alternative. So I'm here for the concept. I love the idea of protein popcorn, but this is ultimately for me a girl don't do it. I just think the saturated fat is too high. It's funny, I'm reading the back of the label now and it's actually talking about the saturated fat. Part of it's cut off, so I can't read all of it, but essentially they say not all saturated fats are created equal. And that goes for popcorn too, and they basically talk about how they are using the healthy saturated fats, which I'm sure is true. Like again, like coconut oil is a great source of saturated fat if you were going to have saturated fat, but because I know that I have that sensitivity, it's just not worth it to me. Like I'm hella picky over the foods that I'll eat that I know have saturated fat in it that could fuck me up. Like Gracias Madre is this dope vegan restaurant in California that has these nachos with these coconut flakes. I will fuck that shit up. Like no regrets. But popcorn, like again, I love popcorn, but it's just not worth it. I just think that for only getting 10 grams of protein and then taking on that much fat, like it's not worth it to me. So that's it for Girl Don't Do It. If you have any particular food that you would want me to review or talk about, feel free to DM me and I will catch you guys next Tuesday. I need to go because I cannot speak today and this is like the third time I've done this, so I clearly need to leave. Bye.